Welcome to your Real Estate Review with Alan Canis of Engel & Volker's Silicon Valley, your weekly getaway to the pulsating heart of the global real estate market. Join us as we bring you exclusive interviews with top producing real estate agents from around the globe. Whether you're a buyer, a seller, or just a real estate enthusiast, this is your insider look into the pros, cons, and the captivating allure of the world's most sought-after locations. Let's discover where your next dream home awaits. Buckle up for a real estate journey like no other. This is your Real Estate Review with Alan Canis of Engel & Volker's Silicon Valley. Welcome to your Real Estate Review again with Alan Canis, that's me, of Engel & Volker's Silicon Valley. I want to welcome Mitch Burns, who is covering Bluffton and Hilton Head Island in South Carolina. Hello, Mitch.
Well, hello, Alan. Great to see you as always, and I appreciate you having me.
This is going to be a good one. We have not had your area, especially Bluffton, and so I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say. So
Yeah, absolutely.
perfect. Let's dive right in. Mitch, would you please tell us how, when, and why you are in real estate?
Absolutely. So it's a great question. Funny enough, I'm pretty young to be in the business when you talk about our market. I have been in real estate since 2015. I received my license. Been in this market since 2012, the Bluffton and Hilton Head market. It's something I got into based on the fact that my dad was actually a business broker. So growing up, he negotiated a lot of, let's say, contracts, but in different terms, not so much with housing, but more with the emotions of business and P&Ls and things like that. So it felt it was easiest to get into the business as a natural progression. From that point in time, I've been with a few different companies, but at this point, I have been with Engel & Volker since 2017. So a fairly long time when you look at the brand and kind of how much they've scaled over the Americas.
That's definitely because, well, and you say 2015. What did you do before real estate? Because you're really young.
Yeah, so before real estate, I was in a different service industry. I had actually helped run a very small mom and pop restaurant, which ended up being a wonderful kind of stairway into relationship building. And it was a very, very high-end Italian restaurant. Smaller town, all about who you know in this type of area. So it was a great relationship builder. And I actually, funny enough, ran a landscape company during the day. So I was a great way for me to learn the area. I thought, hey, what better way to learn the streets, the price points, and the different locations? So it was a great segue into both.
That's awesome. You know, when I hear small town restaurant, et cetera, Italian, I always think Mystic Pizza.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you tell us a little bit about your background in real estate and your specific experience with clients relocating and purchasing a first, second, or third home in Bluffton and Hilton Head Island?
Yeah, absolutely. So funny enough, Bluffton really kind of has started to pop on the map over the last, I'd say, 10-ish years. Since the 60s, everyone's been coming to Hilton Head Island. It's been one of the most coveted islands on the East Coast. Year after year, it wins several awards, which we always love to partake in. But Bluffton is the town before you actually enter the island bridge. There's one bridge that goes on Hilton Head, and there's one that comes off. So it's kind of an afterthought. So everyone has on Hilton Head Sea Pines, which is the famous lighthouse there. They had been vacationing there. Most people, as they started to get older, started to retire there. And then as things progressed, they realized Bluffton's got a great opportunity to scale out and grow. It's also the same county. It's Beaufort County, so shares the same taxes, the same benefits. But that was ultimately how it kind of progressed from Hilton Head into Bluffton and has turned into kind of two separate markets alone.
Oh, okay. That's yeah. I didn't know that there was a beginning and an end. So Bluffton is the way in.
Yes, so you have to go through Bluffton. And one of the things that kind of separates the two at this point in time, Hilton Head has always still been a really popular vacation spot. So between basically May and we'll say September, every summer you have about 60 to 70,000 cars that cross the bridge on Saturday.
Wow.
So
Okay.
if you were to average, just give or take, four people a car, you'd be looking at, 250,000 people coming on every Saturday.
That's a lot. That's a
It's a
lot of
lot,
people.
yeah, on a 12 by 5 island. So we're not talking about a lot of space there. But naturally, people said, hey, we love this area. It's been a great place to kind of visit for the several years. So whether they were retiring and decided to buy a second home and just use it as a true second home, or even retire and use it as a full-time residence. One of the amazing features in general about the island is there is different pockets, if you will, of the island that allows short-term rentals. So it kind of opens up that avenue for an investment opportunity. And then there's other communities that are gated that offer non-short-term rentals. So more coveted for the retirees, if you will.
So when you say short-term rentals, are we talking Airbnb short-term, or is it minimum 30 days?
Yeah, so we're talking Airbnb, right? So you've had all these folks who have come down for, let's say, 40 years. They know Hilton Head, not a lot has changed. And they basically are saying, hey, 7 days is your sweet spot on rentals. But for some smaller condos, things like that, you'll find 1 to 2 night turnovers for maybe people coming to play golf, things like that.
Oh, great. And what are some, we talked about a few of the features, but what are some of the more unique features and attractions of Bluffton and Hilton Head Island that make it an appealing destination for people looking to relocate?
Yeah, so I'd say the weather obviously is a really big proponent for us. We do get a true 4 seasons. A lot of my clients who have been coming for many years, maybe they're starting that venture into buying a primary or a secondary. They say, hey, I look at Florida, I look here, and then I may look, let's say, on the East Coast a little bit further up, North Carolina. So the
Okay.
weather is a really, really nice spot. We do get a little bit, some winters and some colors in the change with the fall. But in general, I would say that the number one destination reason is probably the fact that you can spend so much time outdoors, right? So no snow, nothing like that. So we've got several dozen, if you will, couple dozen communities that offer private golf. So golfing is a huge destination hit here. Being on the boat, we've got the Intercoastal Waterway in our backyard, several different creeks and rivers, and then obviously world-class beaches. I'd say the beaches are certainly the biggest draw for folks.
It's probably been, well, it was before I met my husband. So that's, wow, now I'm really aging myself. It's got to be at least 30 years I was in Hilton Head.
Yep.
So the beach was just amazing, spectacular. So I was
Yeah.
with some friends and family.
And not a lot's changed, I promise, since you were here, right? So they've done a great job of preserving everything with nature and things like that. And one thing a lot of people don't realize is we've got such a wide beach because twice a day we have an 8 foot tide swing, which is a huge difference when you're looking at, as far as expanding and getting a bigger beach.
And we're hearing the buzz about Bluffton and Hilton Head Island. What do you believe all the excitement is about and why people are purchasing in Bluffton and Hilton Head Island?
I'd say it's always and notoriously been a great retiree state, and
Hmm.
more so county, right? So when you look at kind of the nation, you say, okay, where can I retire comfortably as those folks kind of enter that final third? So that's one of the big benefits at that age demographic. I still think that the difference between Hilton Head being a 64 versus Bluffton being a 36, it kind of offers a flavor and lifestyle for everyone. Um,
Okay.
and one of the things that's really unique about here is you can have a $100,000 price point, you can have a $10 million price point. But the reality is there's so many different gated communities that there's going to be such a different flavor, if you will, for each one of those people for a different lifestyle. So if it's boating, if it's golf, if it's the gym, if it's pickleball, tennis, all those activities that partake year round here, people really, really love being here. And it's still a very, very small county. We have 45,000 full-time residents on Hilton Head, and we're at about 40,000 for Bluffton. So a small area in
That is
general,
small.
but a lot to offer in that sense.
Yeah, for me, it's put me on a beach with a cabana, and I'm
Yep.
perfectly fine just setting me there.
Absolutely. And that's how a lot of folks, again, you've got those 250,000 that come during the summertime, and they're the same way. They've gone to the same restaurants for years. They know the same beach spots. They go to the same bars, but it's always very late. We call it the slow country, right? It's always laid back and very, very relaxing.
And that's a nice place to be.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No, no skyscrapers, anything like that. It's very flat, very green, which we love.
How would you describe the current real estate market in Bluffton and Hilton Head Island, and what trends should potential relocators be aware of?
Yeah, it's a great question. So obviously, a lot of folks during the COVID boom saw a very, very tight inventory market. For us, we've started to see since about 23 a little bit more inventory creep on. So it's turned into slower than normal, a little bit more of a buyer's market, if you will.
Okay.
So we're not in those situations in those major markets where you may be seeing multiples. That's a rare commodity nowadays here. But I'd say if you're in that position of saying, hey, we're ready to buy now, most things that are turnkey, if you will, so homes that were built maybe in the 70s or the 80s, those are certainly going to be the most attractive, probably one level appealing to that demographic. But one thing we've seen that's really slower, and I think this is kind of all up and down the East Coast, is you've got the condo market that's becoming a little bit more saturated. Your carrying costs are getting a little bit higher. So that's something, if you're in that type of realm of a buying world, you certainly have way more power, if you will, and a little bit more patience.
We find here, the San Francisco Peninsula, Silicon Valley, the condo market has slowed. It's almost flatlined.
Yeah.
And the HOAs are not helping, but they have to be higher in order to cover the costs.
Correct.
There's a lot of deferred maintenance in some of the buildings. And so it's interesting watching this formation of how the condo market is going to come out of this. Will be interesting to see, because sellers still want the higher prices, but buyers are not willing to pay the higher price and deal with all of this special assessments.
Exactly. And I think that one thing when people think about the coastline, right, especially the southeast coastline, they think about hurricanes. And
Yeah.
that's one really, really attractive feature for us here, being so covered, I'd say, like tucked away on the coastline. We don't see that nearly as much as like the Gulf would, or maybe South Florida would, or even up the coast towards North Carolina. So that's another reason I'd say when you look at folks who are kind of targeting this destination, they kind of make that a consideration. So that I also think is a great aspect of it.
That's a good consideration.
You don't want to be caught in one of those. We've had a couple scares over the years, and they're no fun, that's for sure.
Yeah, we have earthquakes here, and I'm okay
Oh,
with an earthquake because I can roll with it. But a hurricane or a tornado, no, don't.
but I feel like with an earthquake, there's no warning, right? It's just kind of, it happens and it happens.
Yeah, but I guess growing up with it,
Yeah,
we're used to it, and we just kind of do this, and
right, right.
knock on wood that it hasn't gotten worse. But yeah.
Yeah.
What are some of the common challenges or pitfalls that people face when relocating or purchasing in Bluffton and Hilton Head Island, and how do you help them navigate these?
Yeah, a wonderful question. So I think when people look at or have been visiting here for such a long time, they have to remember it is a very small market. And what I mean by that is, you share so many of the same restaurants, the same grocery stores, but one of the least convenient aspects about our market is probably the travel. Being in a smaller market, you have to either drive to Savannah, which is an international airport, but most of the time you're going to have a connecting flight. So that's one thing I'd say is a pitfall for us, is you're always getting on two planes as opposed to one for folks who are coming from a little bit larger of a market. The second thing I would say is most people don't consider if they're looking at a primary versus a secondary. If you're looking for a secondary home, you do have higher taxes that kind of comes into play. So if you're looking at one of those investment properties, for example, on the island, you may say, hey, it makes more sense to live here X amount of days so that we can claim primary and rent it Y amount of days versus renting it full time and not having those advantages on the taxes. And another thing I would consider is it's very hot. I think a lot of folks, they say, hey, well, it's not Florida hot. It is very warm in July and August, and more so the humidity. I mean, it's you're drenched by the time the 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the afternoon comes around. But the pitfalls, it's getting a little bit busier, so you get a little bit more traffic here and there, depending on if you're going to the island at certain times or if you're in Bluffton at certain times. But they've done a wonderful job in the county. We've got 2 new hospitals coming in place. They just broke ground on those, so infrastructure is excellent. I can't say that's a pitfall.
So I have a friend that is in Hilton Head, and she says she justifies her wardrobe because during the months or times when the humidity is so heavy, she has to change twice and sometimes 3 times.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe, just playing golf, and even in May, you literally are just soaking wet, and then July comes and it's just a totally different story. Now,
Different
is
beast.
your friend full time here?
Yes, she's full
Excellent.
time. Yeah.
Excellent.
Can you give us a sense of lifestyle in the Bluffton and Hilton Head Island, and what are the local communities like, and what kind of amenities can a newcomer expect?
Yeah, so as we talked about a little bit ago, one of the unique parts about our market is there is a lot of different gated communities and a lot of different price points inside of those gated communities. So the 2 most popular on the island would be Sea Pines, which offers short-term rentals. It's also the largest. It's about 6,200 doors. And then you go to Hilton Head Plantation, which is on the north end of the island, and that does not offer short-term rentals. So it's more of a primary residence area, but both have wonderful amenities, from multiple golf courses to enjoy, to beach access, to gardening. They've got pavilion areas to hang out, world-class pools, tennis, pickleball, all of those things. But I also take a look at the more exclusive clubs in Bluffton. So you have more that they call the big three or the big four.
Okay.
Those are going to be more country club style communities. So those communities, you're going to have a higher yearly due that you pay into the club, but it's got two very private golf courses, excellent amenities, and it's kind of an unlimited play for golf, if you will. So if you're kind of tailoring towards, hey, I'm going to be in Hilton Head, it's one of the biggest golf capitals in the entire country, if not the world, you may lean a little bit more towards that and say, hey, I'm not going to use the beach as much. But some folks don't love either, and they love boating, right? So you may go to a completely different community that's going to offer a marina, or they may offer private dock space or both. So there is a lot of flexibility. One of the things I think a lot of people lose touch on when you talk about amenities is location. You know, obviously that's a big thing for the beach, but if you look at the heart of Bluffton, one of the unique aspects of it is it's all golf cartable. So Friday evening here, we'll be going out, and we have a company golf cart for England Volkers that we love to drive clients around, ride around in general, but we all have personal golf carts that live in Old Town as well. So
That's
it's really
great.
fun to kind of go out and, you know, hit happy hour or go to one of your favorite restaurants, even go to the gym. So it's a really, really, like I said, slow pace of life, but that's a different amenity a lot of people don't consider from time to time.
So is yours an Engel Volker's golf cart?
It is, yeah. So we have one that's branded. It's got the GG logo on it. We had it made a couple years ago. Anthony, actually, when he was in town, we took him for a little spin on it when he
Oh,
was a client
terrific.
here.
So you have to send me a picture with you on the golf cart.
Oh, of course, absolutely. I'd be happy. We'll send you a little video. It goes way faster than you would imagine, too. It goes about 25 miles per hour, so it really scoots.
We have a second house in South Lake Tahoe, and my husband wants to have a golf cart. And I said, it's our community is not big enough. And he said, that's exactly why I want it.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. There's a retirement community here similar on that scale. A lot of people come down with two cars. They'll ditch one of their cars and pick up a golf cart. So now everything in that community is the grocery right outside of it, pharmacy, doctors, everything like that.
Oh, terrific. Bluffton and Hilton Head Island is known for its beautiful weather. We've talked a little bit about that. Can you talk about the climate and what you said the four seasons? Do you get snow?
Yeah, so actually, wonderful question. It snowed this year for the first time in, I think, 7 or 8 years. It was more of an ice sheet than anything, so the
Okay.
kids really enjoyed it. The unfortunate part for us is we don't prepare here in South Carolina for snow, so they shut down schools for several days. The grocery stores are closed, everything like that. So, but I would say the best 2 seasons to be in our market is by far probably March through May, and then September through November.
Okay.
The spring and the fall are wonderful because it's not as humid in the spring, but you're still getting that warmer weather. For example, it's 80 degrees now, very low humidity. And in the fall, you're getting those changing colors with the cooling temperatures in the evening. Winters are very mild. I think that's one thing a lot of folks, again, they put into consideration. We probably see 2 weeks a year in the 30s as the low, and the high is still going to be in your mid 50s, right? So it's still going to offer golf access full time for those who want to be on the golf course, pickleball, tennis. A little bit harder to do the boating, but you can still enjoy the beach, obviously, at those temperatures. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if you can survive July and August, those are the 90, 92 degrees, but 100% humidity. So that pretty much rounds it out. But we've got a very, very even keel, I think, climate compared to most.
So you just have to sweat out the 2 months.
That's it. I mean, all your fun you've had the other 10 months. It's exactly right.
So, speaking of climate, how is the business and economic climate in Bluffton and Hilton Head Island?
Yeah, so it's a very service industry area because it's such a resort destination for a lot of folks, right? So Montage, which is where Justin Bieber got married and several other celebrities frequently visit, is about 10 miles from where I'm sitting. We do a fair amount of business in Palmetto Bluff is the community it's located in. And that is something that's going to offer every type of service, right? From landscaping to the Montage, which is the hotel. They're going to have all the cleaning services, janitorial, everything like restaurants, everything along those lines. There's not a huge business hub here in general for those who are probably going to be coming from a major city, which I think is another pitfall. So
Okay.
most of the folks who live here, they're either an entrepreneur doing some type of business that might be related to something like real estate, or they may be in something like photography, or what I've seen a lot of times is marketing. So there's most people who've got the larger jobs, maybe traveling 30 minutes down to Savannah, 25 minutes to Beaufort. Charleston's about 90 minutes from us, which I actually have clients that commute there daily for their job, which I think is crazy, but they love what they do and they have a great ladder doing it. So it's more of certainly of a service industry for both Bluffton and Hilton Head, especially because Hilton Head being a lot of the retirees.
Gotcha. You know, commuting is just a big thing on the San Francisco Peninsula. It,
Mhm.
I hear clients say, well, I commute an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours. I get peace time. I get peaceful time while I'm in the car. I'm like, wow.
Yes, hopefully they've all got Teslas because I can't imagine this being very, very peaceful. Stop, go, stop, go.
No, California, we don't say Tesla anymore.
Oh no. What's the new name for it?
No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
But we see the bumper stickers. I bought a Tesla before.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. That's
Yeah.
funny. That's funny.
From your perspective, what are the top benefits for someone considering a move or a purchase to Bluffton and or Hilton Head Island?
So when I get a lot of referrals or clients that are looking and maybe they've never been here, right? So it's hard to believe that a lot of folks have never been to Hilton Head, but it's more so I'd say Bluffton. I
Okay.
take a deep dive into them, and maybe we set up a call, something like this, or maybe we set up just a phone call. You really want to understand that it's a lot more challenging to see real estate from afar if you've never been here because it is such a vast lifestyle market. So you want to make sure you're getting with an expert in that sense. You're understanding, hey, the first time you visit, we may not look at the house that you saved on Zillow or on our drip portal. We're going to really focus on the communities, right? So we say, okay, your price point might be 500 to a million, and you want to be in a golf community, but you want to have a gym, but you still want to be close to the island. You may say, okay, we're going to leave this Zillow favorite off and we're going to focus on the community. So I would say definitely do a lot of research into the lifestyle, number one, understand what you're getting there, understand the costs. I think a lot of times when folks are relocating here, they don't realize like what a property owned association fee may be. They may not understand the utility costs. They may not understand the taxes. And when you're really looking at that condo market, do a huge deep dive into reserves. You want to understand exactly kind of how long they're doing these assessments for, if they're doing any assessments on the buildings. So really just get a better understanding from afar of the numbers on the condos, but more importantly, from those who are looking at single family, and maybe it's an investment, get the previous years or rental performance that the house has done or that condo has done. I think a lot of times people think you can move here and have something paid for itself. It's probably unlikely, but you can still get it to where you can enjoy it and maybe break even, if you will.
The goal is to at least break even. My
Correct.
dad says if you can break even, you've won.
Yeah, exactly. And it's challenging because a lot of the, as we talked earlier, a lot of the higher carrying costs for the condo associations and insurance and just life in general are starting to really come into those figures. And a lot of the older folks who've owned these condos for 30, 40 years, they've been pushed off for selling them just because it's not what they had at one point or another.
Yeah. In what ways do you, as a real estate agent, provide value for someone relocating from another region or state? And how do you differentiate yourself from other agents?
Wonderful question. Yeah. So as the
It's one of my
licensed partner here,
favorites.
yes, I love this question because as the licensed partner, I take a lot of pride in this. When we're obviously looking at hiring advisors, number one, but at the same point in time, taking the best client service, number two. So it's crucial, as we talked about a couple minutes ago, to really have an understanding of what your client wants. And for those, again, who have not been here, it's really like drinking out of a fire hose when your boots hit the ground and see, even though it's such a small market geographically, how much there is to offer as far as that community and that lifestyle. So get a good understanding of that. I do a wonderful job for my out of town clients, whether they're buyers or sellers, of keeping them up to date with maybe something they've been down here in the past. We get them a video of the property. We may do a FaceTime walkthrough. We may also, at the same point in time, we do a lot of video content, as I was sharing with you earlier. So we may have a stock video of that community itself. But one thing we found that's been very successful for our market is YouTube, believe it or not. So the demographic is starting to use that more as a search engine, and it's been great for us because a lot, even might not be our office itself or myself, but there is a lot of agents in this market. There's 2,400, believe it or not. So it's a very, very saturated market with agents. We always joke around and say, you get your license when you apply for your driver's license, you get your real estate license. So,
We have one out of every 6 Californians has their real estate license. So we're
so
right there
still,
with you.
yeah, that is a lot as well. So everyone here knows an agent, right? And That's one thing that even you can work it to your advantage though, and say, hey, I saw a YouTube video, I saw Long Cove, I saw Sea Pines, I saw Wexford. So do a really deep dive on what you want to understand. And then because we're so limited a lot of times on our clients being in town for maybe a vacation or a wedding or a golf trip, you want to make the most of that time. So you don't want to overwhelm anyone when they're visiting this area. I like to always break up my trips for clients into 2 4-hour splits, depending on, if they're here for 7 days. And that's a 2-day break. Because if you give them, as in any market, if you give them way too much to consume, they're going to get overwhelmed. They're going to start to lose track of their thoughts, what they may have seen. So you want to really get organized and take a good understanding of where they are and what they want. Now, of course, we get folks all the time who we just list something and they say, oh, I want to see 123 Main Street today. And you start really doing the vetting. And since all the recent changes in the real estate world, it's become a little bit easier to tell them no. But it's a really, really great question because a lot of times you have to understand first and foremost, is it an investment? Is it a primary residence? Or is it going to be a true secondary? And then you can kind of peel the onion or the layers back from there.
It's really getting to know what your client's true interest is and what they're looking after, what they're going after.
And one thing that we see here a lot of times is, given the demographic base and us being a pretty healthy 50-50 split between buyers and sellers, we see a lot of folks buy maybe 4 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, expecting all these grandchildren and family to come and visit. But the unfortunate reality is most of our sellers are either relocating back to be closer to those grandchildren and those kids, or they may just be aging out. And so that's one thing that is a little bit different from here. A lot of markets, you may see job relocation. That's one thing we don't have a ton of here. We see more people that are literally just, it's a true motivation on their lifestyle changing, not so much their actual workforce.
What is one piece of advice you would give to someone who is thinking about relocating or purchasing in Bluffton and Hilton Head Island?
I would say understand what your intention is with the property, as we talked about. I would understand the larger geographical scale of proximity to those major markets like Savannah, Charleston, Jacksonville's 2.5 hours away, Atlanta's 4 hours, Charlotte's 4 hours. So get a good understanding of, if you're looking at it as a primary, I always suggest to folks, hey, maybe take a look in Savannah at Skidaway and the Landings with our good friend Dickie Mopper and Jessica down there, or maybe go to Jacksonville and explore a little bit. So really take advantage of your time on the East Coast and do a deep dive and see if Hilton Head's really what you want to be, or if it's where you can spend forever. And most of the time, folks, because they've come in here for 30 years, they know everything about it. So it's more so, hey, have you been through this community? Are you aware of, the covenants and restrictions in this community? And if they've never really been, which is a lot of folks, to Bluffton, you say, hey, would you open up your search to a newer home, still 20 minutes from the beach, and maybe be in a little bit more of a vibrant community and not so many vacationers that are going to be disrupting you, midnight every night. So really, again, get a good understanding of what you're looking for, I would say would be the best goal.
That's a good piece of advice. And, we're hearing throughout the country that the real estate market can be a little crazy. And in Bluffton and Hilton Head Island, are you seeing that as well?
We are in certain pockets, right? So you're not seeing as those many multiple offers. You're seeing a higher days on market in our market. But for the right opportunities, what we're seeing is a lot of folks may be moving up in the same community. Maybe they love, let's say, for example, Hampton Hall, which is a golf community. They've maybe lived there for 15 years, and there's a spec that's being built, and they want to be into a newer home. So we're seeing a lot of inner transitions into that type of idea. But at the same point in time, we're also seeing folks that may be going from a country club community such as Colleton River or Palmetto Bluff into a beach community or a waterfront community. So there's still a lot of local transitions back and forth. But the status of the real estate market as a whole is turned into a little bit more of a buyer's market, especially on the condos. But the single family, we probably have, if I had to take a guess, somewhere around 500 single family homes on the entire island available, and probably about double that, if not maybe 750 available in Bluffton itself.
Wow, available.
Correct. And that also takes into consideration when you look at like new construction, right? So one of the things that's a huge draw for our area is, especially as you're going a little bit further west towards Savannah, but still consider maybe Bluffton or Oakity, you have a lot of new construction. So it's really challenging, as you know, in the new construction world to compete with the incentives that the builders give you, whether it's closing costs, and it's, a lot of those first-time buyers, it's attracted in the price point, the fact that you don't have to do any work for it too many years. So there is a healthy amount of competition that's come up over the last 10 years in the Bluffton market that Hilton had more so specifically didn't have to worry about back in the day. And even on the island, you're seeing little pockets of 30, 40, 50 home communities that are just going up, that they found land and managed to talk their way into subdividing it and making it work.
Here, the San Francisco Peninsula, Silicon Valley, we don't see the pockets as much. So the inventory is very low. So
Really?
in a few of our cities, there's only 6 homes.
Wow.
9 homes. And it's interesting. But the homes that are, 5 million and above, we're seeing, they're sitting a little bit longer, but the houses that are 3 million and below, they're moving off the shelf pretty quickly because that's entry level first time home buyers.
I was going to say, are you seeing most of that price points like a full-time user or consumer?
Full-time users. Yeah.
Okay.
We're
And then over
mainly
5 million
full-time.
is going to be maybe that secondary?
Secondary, we see up in Tahoe,
Okay.
which is out of the area. Primary is in our area. It's primary homeowners. They're staying here full time.
Yeah, and one thing that's a great indication, as I always share with my office, as far as kind of the higher net worth individuals, is Palmetto Bluff, which is where the Montage is we talked about a little bit ago. Those are most of the time going to be second to fourth homes.
Okay.
So it's a very, very stagnant market. And if you see inventory start to tick up there, which right now I think we're sitting at about 70 homes in Palmetto Bluff alone available.
Wow. Okay.
It's a little bit of a good indication of what's happening across the country. That's one thing I always like to track. I say, well, the third and fourth and second homes go first. The primary homes go last. So the fact that we're seeing a higher inventory out there can probably forecast, if you will, a little bit softening of a market.
It'll happen here at some point. It's just a matter of when.
Correct.
That's what I tell it. Yeah, take advantage when you can.
And you're seeing most of the like 3 million and under, is it mostly cash, finance? Is it a combination?
It's a combination of both. So if it's a fixer upper house, it could be all cash because it could be an investor that's looking to flip. If it's first time home buyers, they're putting anywhere from 10, 20, 40% down.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We're not seeing the influx of cash just to buy and sit on it like we were seeing years in the past. So right now, what we're seeing is they're qualifying for loans. Buyers are pre-approved typically through underwriting because they want to be competitive. And we're seeing that they're non-contingent offers. That's the other. Yeah. So no loan, no appraisal. The inspections are already provided. And it's quick closes. So with a loan, I have a lender that can close in 12 days.
Wow,
so
that's incredible.
Very fast.
As long as the buyer's got their ducks in a row, that's incredible.
Yes, exactly. So as long as the buyers have all their information, it can be very quick.
And what in your market, what is the average close date as far as when written, like under contract versus?
The average close date I would say is probably 24 days.
Okay.
We're seeing, so that's average. And it could go up to 45, but that's very rare we see 45 days. So typically when I have a property that has multiple offers, the close dates are typically between 20 and 30 days.
Gotcha.
So
that'd be
which is still fast.
Yeah,
it's still,
right.
Well, Mitch, we are at the end. I want to thank you so much for being on the show. And anyone who is thinking about moving to or has questions regarding Bluffton and Hilton Head Island in South Carolina, you have to talk to Mitch Burns. So he is your man. This is your real estate review with Alan Candace, that's me, of Ingle Volker, Silicon Valley. Mitch, thank you again.